Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside Green Bean from Jet Nation. How you doing, Green Bean?
Oh man, I'm feeling positive. I'm pumped. I'm ready.
Now we are without Matt tonight. He had a prior engagement, so we will be joined by Mario in just a little bit. He will be talking a whole lot of smack, I'm sure, about our Week 1 loss to his Buffalo Bills. Green Bean, you still in the Pacific Northwest out there?
I am. Just like Stephen Engel just said in the chat, I'm eating a lot of Washington apples out here. It's still smoky. But the good news, it rained all night and all day today. So hopefully that'll help with the fires. But yeah, man, I'm out here in Jamal Adams country and I hate him.
Especially after the game they just won this past weekend. It's like so frustrating too. It's just got to be eating all the Jet fans up inside just a little bit. Now, Let's just jump right into it. Let's talk a little bit about Week 1 for the New York Jets. What were your initial takeaways from the game?
Well, let's see. Number one, I thought they came out lifeless. I thought the word I was using all day was uninspired. That's kind of how it felt to me from the word go. Even the defense seemed to be moving a little bit slower. I thought the receivers were off. I thought Sam Darnold was off. And I thought the game plan was not exactly what I thought should have been the beginning game plan. It was very different, and it was ugly. I mean, we knew, having been a Jets fan for this long, you can tell when the game is lost. And by the second drive, I had that deep sinking feeling like, yep, here we go. And it's unfortunate, but that was my overall perception. There are some positives, and we'll get there. But overall, I thought we laid a major egg, and it was like seeing the first preseason game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt too. It seemed like the whole team was just rusty across the board. Sam looked like he was uncomfortable the entire day. The receivers did not give him any help. The offensive line, I was a little surprised. I was actually pretty happy overall with how they performed. There's, I can nitpick a little bit, but compared to what they had last year, I want to say there was a stat at one point where Sam Darnold had over 3 seconds to throw for 6 of the first 8 passing attempts that he had. So they were giving him some time. I don't know if it's Sam not finding the open receiver or, just receivers not getting wide open. Defensive wise, we could not stop Josh Allen. It was definitely a rusty day for the whole defense. We were happy with what we got out of Bless Austin and Mark, May. I think having May perform the way he did in the role that he was asked to perform really kind of allows Jet fans a sigh of relief, because that's the role that Jamal Adams would have played, and May played it perfectly. I really enjoyed watching him play. Now, linebacker-wise, we're a little hurt. We're missing, we're already without Mosley. Williamson doesn't play. Peanut's out right now. And then you lose Cashman on the first drive, and now I find out today that he is going to be on the IR for the next 3 weeks to go along with Mims and Le'Veon Bell. So the Jets are just in a world of hurt. It's just not great. If you could take, let's see, from an offensive standpoint, what can you say? Was there anything at all that you can say positive about this New York Jets team from what we saw from Game 1?
Well, the joke that I'll lay out there is that we got Week 1 over with. So that's some positive news. We got that first game. We talked about offensive linemen needing to gel and all those kinds of things. That is now behind us. I do think if we had a preseason, we would have seen a better Week 1. So we were able to get that aside, and that is a positive. But as far as players go, and, in the game itself, you started to talk about it, and I'll just embellish this statement a little bit. We saw what Jamal Adams does in a game because we just watched Marcus May do it. Now, all of the people saying that it's our best player and all that, I don't know. I beg to differ. Marcus May actually had a more impactful stat line than Jamal Adams had. Jamal Adams had 12 tackles, 8 solo, and a sack. Marcus May had 10 tackles, 7 solo, a forced fumble, and 2 sacks. So we saw it's essentially the same stat line. Marcus Mays is a little bit better, but we saw how that doesn't really change the result of the game. And that's why not paying someone that fills that role, $20 million or whatever it might be, is the way to go. We got two number one picks, and we still have Jamal Adams on the team, just without all the BS. The other thing I thought, and you mentioned this as well, the offensive line was playing pretty well. They did blow some assignments, particularly on blitzes and stunts. Van Roten and McGovern had some miscues that I saw. I have to do more of a deep dive, but I saw some of that after I watched the game again. But Becton looks fine, and my surprise was Fant looked fine to me. They're not perfect, but they looked good to me, and that is a positive. They're only going to get better.
Yeah, look, I was very pleased with what we got out of the offensive line. I'll pull up. For you guys that care about Pro Football Focus or anything, they actually did a little bit of a breakdown. I believe. Let me see. I believe it was Becton and Lewis were our two highest graded offensive linemen. We actually had Becton, I think, came out as the fifth best rookie performance by Pro Football Focus this past weekend. So that's something to hang our hats on. He graded out as a 77.2 overall. That was good to be the 11th overall left tackle in the league for week one. In terms of Alex Lewis, he graded out as an 82.9. That is the fourth best guard of all guards, left and right. So really not too bad. And even Van Roten, 69.6 across the board. This line's looking a lot better than it did last year. Even though we're just one game in, it feels a little bit better than how we sort of performed last year. Guys, before we jump into too much, I do want to make note of the lower right-hand corner of the screen. You'll notice we got a sponsorship for the season. Jets Talk is proud to announce our new sponsor for the NFL season, MyBookie.ag. This NFL season, anyone who signs up with MyBookieAG and uses promo code JT receives a 100% bonus match up to $1,000. Use promo code JT.
Wow.
Bet with me, win some money. MyBookieAG, promo code JT. Double your money today. MyBookieAG, promo code JT. Make sure you head over there. We're going to do a whole lot of gambling this year, especially when the Jets are not that great. It's something that gives me a little bit of, something to watch on game days along with my fantasy teams and whatnot. But yeah, look, offensive line-wise, very pleased with what we got out of them. McGovern and Fant, if you guys are wondering just how they graded out, McGovern was the lowest out of 58 overall. He graded out as the 23rd center in the league, and Fant was a 58.8, the 56th tackle out of 66 tackles that were graded. That being said, it's a very, very rough grade to start the season. It's not that's not to say this is how this is going to look by season's end. These guys are going to have a lot more time to gel. It's just one game. I think this is going to be a lot of the rust. If you're looking at some of the other offensive performers that we got for week one, Jamison Crowder was our best weapon at a 69.8. That was 34th of all wide receivers. That's 105 wide receivers that were graded. Sam Darnold, not very good in terms of quarterback play. He was the last ranked quarterback by Pro Football Focus with a 37.2. And I think anyone that watched this game really could sit there and tell you Darnold did not have a good game. Now, I know you have brought up the potential tinfoil hat theory of Trevor Lawrence. Does this situation make you nervous with Sam Darnold?
Excuse me. But look, you say that. Now, I am a Sam Darnold fan. I want you guys to know that. Anything I say, if I hear ideas and everything and I give it out, doesn't necessarily mean that I believe or I'm supporting that. I'll tell you when I do, of course. But I think this is the deepness of the problem with Sam Darnold. And I agree with you. He had a terrible day. He was flat out missing guys when he had time. Now, maybe he doesn't trust his O-line yet. That's very possible. There was a bit of erratic, happy feet kind of stuff going on with him. But the deep problem with him is that he looks as if he's regressing. Now, what does that mean? That means that he is not he's not moving forward in his progress as a developmental young quarterback. He's now in his third year, and he looks as shaky as a rookie out there. He's off target, he's erratic, he's kind of confused looking, all those kinds of things. So that, to me, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in Sam Darnold. I believe that we're ruining Sam Darnold. That's what I believe. And it's sad to say that, and it sucks, and I hate it, man. I hate when players leave and they're right. I hate when we get somebody and they're ruined, but that's what I think is happening. I wouldn't give up on Sam yet. I do think we're going to come out and beat the Niners, and we can flesh that out later if we want. But I don't think it's over for him. He's done this before, and I think we'll see flashes. But I don't like what I'm seeing developmental wise.
Yeah, that's sort of where I stand as well. And I tried very hard not to totally rip on Sam or Adam Gase for this loss in particular, just because there's a lot of moving pieces, very limited wide receiver continuity in training camp, very limited offensive line play prior to this. So I think there's going to be a better situation. They're going to gel more. But Sam did look like he regressed, or at least looked like he didn't take the next step forward. All camp we were told he understands this offense so much more now that he's in year two. He's taking command, and you're hearing all these good tweets come out, similarly to like every season. I feel like we overanalyze the tweets coming out, and then we get to game day, and it looks like we are just not prepared at all. We had Sam Darnold missing wide open guys. The one play that I was really critical of him, and someone sent me this, I don't have the name offhand, but you sent it to me on my Instagram. It was a link of Sam Darnold rolling out to the right and running out of bounds and taking that sack. Well, as he's like kind of cocking his arm, getting ready to throw it, Jamison Crowder has his hand up in the air wide open, and that was an easy play. There was like 6 yards of separation there. Sam should have been able to hit him for a huge gain there. And then if you look even further down the field, Perriman beat all his guys. He was wide open. He was double covered, but he was wide open. He blew past him. And that's something that I want Sam to just let it rip on those sorts of plays. There's really no reason to take the sack behind the line of scrimmage when you're running out of bounds. At the very least, you need to throw that ball out. And I think these are the kinds of mistakes that have me concerned. This is not rookie play anymore. You're in your third year. You should know well enough about the downs and distances, about the situational football of getting rid of it wherever you're on the field. That, to me, really thinks that I'm concerned Sam is not progressing. And now that leads me into Gase, where I'm not impressed with his calling of the game. I don't necessarily put a ton of blame on him. I think we were limited in our weapons and basically how Sam was playing and how we were sort of forced to play. But we did not have desirable downs and distances like we were talking about the week prior. We needed to get out of those 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 type situations and get into more reasonable 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Things that you could do, a run play, a pass play, a screen play, something that sort of gets the defense off kilter and you're actually able to, I don't know, get a shot to get down the field and start, a fresh set of downs.
Yeah. And, and let me ask you, man, so what do we think is the reason why he didn't throw that? He's staring at Crowder. That he knows damn well he's about to run out of bounds 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. What is it? Why isn't he doing this, man? What the hell is the problem?
My thinking with that one in particular is he already had the interception, the bad interception getting thrown across his body, and I would have to guess at halftime they probably told him, look, you need to protect the ball. We need to not have turnovers if we want to win this game. And maybe he was a little gun shy at that point. I think normally he would try to throw that, which sort of threw me off a little bit, but that would be my thought on that. But even on that play, I mean, granted you had a defender in his face, but on the interception, when he threw that terrible play, he had a bunch of yards wide open in front of him. One thing I would really like to see Sam do and have Adam Gase do is have more running plays, or at least plays that give Sam the option to run. He doesn't have mono. That was the whole reason I thought we may not have saw runs last year. They didn't want him to open him up to big shots. He's fresh. He's healthy. He's a big dude. He can make moves happen on the run. Even if it's a designed bootleg or we're doing play actions or things like that, not having the threat of a run from your quarterback or from the running back in general is taking away one aspect that the defense has to guard against, and I think you're not doing our team justice. So that's where I sort of fall in terms of a Gase and Darnold blame. I would put it equally on both of them. The defense, look, didn't stop Josh Allen, but I think the offense, more so than not, was the stagnant point that we saw.
Yeah, it's really, and I think that actually makes a lot of sense when you say they probably told him like, hey man, we don't need that kind of play right now. So he was being a little bit cautious and tentative. Still though, when there's an open receiver in front of you, or just throwing the ball away, and I know it's really, you know, you don't want to focus on one play, which really didn't have, it wasn't like, you know, a 4th and 4 where, you know, it wasn't that kind of a play. At the same time, it was indicative of the whole game. You know what I mean? It kind of painted a picture about the confusion of the whole game, and the game paints a picture of a grander design behind how are we developing this guy. I don't have faith in Dowell Logans. And look, you know, I've been supporting Gase the whole time. I don't like him. I didn't want to hire him, but I've been supporting him. And even though there were open receivers and stuff, the game plan looked, like I said, other than I expected them to come out against the Buffalo Bills. Like, we all know where their weaknesses are. We all know how to beat them, and we weren't doing that. So it just, I don't know. It just, it's problematic, man. But above everything, Sam is a quarterback. He's been playing, you know, he's been throwing a ball around since he's 5. You can throw it to an open guy, and I don't know what the problem is. You know what I mean? It's concerning, man. It's concerning.
Now, let's get into the defensive side before we start doing any sort of tinfoil hat theories and start thinking outside the box here. Let's talk about the defense and what we saw out of them, the pros and cons. Pro-wise, I think, bless Austin, he seems like he's a legitimate starting corner in this league. I think he could be a number 1 corner at the very least, you know, starting opposite our starter, you know, our number 1 corner, whatever that may be. Marcus May had a great showing. He had the forced fumble. He had 2 sacks. He did miss a few tackles that I wasn't too thrilled about early on, that I was like thinking, oh God, this is where Jamal Adams would come in handy and hopefully not whiff on some stuff. But overall, I liked what I got out of Marcus May. I liked what I got out of Bless Austin. Linebackers, look, what kills me with that is they're the guys that set up your whole defense, and not to have a starter out there, I think, really crippled our ability to spy Josh Allen. And that's where we kind of saw our weakness more than anything else. Allen ran for like 57 yards and a touchdown, and we weren't able to stop him all day. Then you have our defensive line. I didn't see much out of Quinnen Williams. He had that bad roughing the passer call, which wound up netting, I want to say it was like 31 yards by the time they got the completion, and also tacked on the yardage on top of it. So he was very underwhelming. I mean, we stopped the run overall. When you factor out Josh Allen, I want to say we were at like a 3.2 yards per carry
Right.
for the day. So I like that we're still seeing that aspect of it. But if you're going to give up, 312 yards passing and then have another 100 yards worth of penalties, it doesn't matter if you stop the run. You're giving them first down after first down throughout the whole day.
Right. And it's a funny thing, when we talk about Quinnen Williams, and funny in a not very funny way, right? It's like he came in looking svelte. He came in looking really, really good. He was talking the right game. I'm going to be unstoppable this year. He changed his diet, everything going on with him. Opened the training camp looking very good, quieted down. And then he comes out and he looks, he had that, what do you have? I think he had 1 tackle for a loss or something like that. But he was a non-factor in the game. And I don't really know why. It could be schematic, with having him take up space and all that. And you're right, we were able to stop the run for the most part. But he didn't have an impact on the game. Quinnen Williams was the 3rd overall pick. He was called elite by numerous people who are good analysts. Elite. And this guy comes out and he can't do anything. And I don't understand why. And it's one of those things where you hate to give up on a young kid like that. And obviously we're not going to. But it's when you have your top end draft picks not contributing. Becton contributed, but Sam Darnold having a rough day. Quinnen Williams having a non-day. And it's like, where do you go from here when you compound that with injuries and Blake Cashman, this guy, um, he got injured twice in college. He got in IR last year. He's on IR this year. It's like, why are we depending on this guy? It's sad. I like him as a player, but like they say, the number one ability is availability. And unfortunately, some of these guys don't have that. But Quinnen was an issue for me, man. I thought he was going to come out and have at least a day where you knew he was on the field, and I didn't see that.
Yeah, as far as the defense goes, I'm pulling up their Pro Football Focus grades right now. I would think they'd bring up Alec Ogletree from the practice squad. I feel like you have to for this game if you can get him some reps, because right now we got Lange playing inside linebacker and he's an outside linebacker. We're literally down to no one left. It's Hewitt and him. Looking up at our defensive Pro Football Focus grades, Marcus May, obviously the highest graded of our unit at an 84.6. That is the fifth best safety in the NFL right now in terms of Pro Football Focus grade. Let's see, who was second? I believe it was Austin. Yep, Austin had a 60.7. That was good for 42nd out of 100 cornerbacks. Would have thought that was a little bit better, but I think given the amount of yards the Jets gave up and how we sort of handled everything, I'm not too surprised by that. Poole was right behind him with a 59.8, so 44th cornerback out of 100. And then you look at Desir. Desir was 96 out of 100. That was he had a 30.7 for the day. He was terrible. He got benched at halftime, and rightfully so. I'm sitting there watching the whole first half. I was like, man, he does not look prepared. He does not look ready at all. Get this guy off the field. And he was replaced by Hairston at halftime.
Oh, my God.
In terms of Quinnen Williams, he graded out as the 64th defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman. Actually, no, I think it's all defensive linemen. Yeah, all defensive linemen out of 112. So about halfway, 56.6. Anderson was a 59, so a few slots in front of him with a 58 overall. Look, our defense needs to play better than that, and I know we're not going to face that Bills team all the time, but if we're going to have Josh Allen running around, which seems to be the crux of the whole weakness in our defense right now, we have to verse Allen twice, and we have to verse Cam Newton twice, and that seems like 4 games where the Jets are really, really going to have a hard time. Not to mention Russell Wilson. I mean, I can kind of chalk that up for a loss right now based on what we've seen out of the Seahawks already this season. But man, I have a hard time looking at this defense and thinking we're going to be elite. I think we could be a top 15 unit, but based on what we saw, it was rough.
Yeah. And you brought up Desir. I mean, what the hell happened there, man? It almost looked. Remember when Trumaine Johnson, outside of that first game, I do believe that Trumaine Johnson, when he got his bell rocked after that pick in the Detroit game, his first game, he just kind of decided, hey, I don't really care. This is bullshit. I'm not doing this anymore. But you could see him. He was out there on plays, and we saw this from Mo Claiborne too. They're just kind of not running full speed. It's like they're out there, they're covering, they're going through the motions, but they're just not running full speed. That's what I saw from Desir. That's what he looked like to me. My first take was like, this guy better wake up, man. Like, he just looks like he's sleepwalking out there. And I'm glad that we have a coach like Greg Williams that'll actually bench somebody like that. He was one of the big free agent acquisitions this year. In previous years, Bowles never would have benched him. So Greg Williams saying, you go get the hell off the field and putting Hairston on there is actually a good thing, but that's a good thing in a very bad situation. And Desir, I don't know, maybe because he was injured and wasn't really back to 100%, he was injured most of training camp. I don't know, maybe that's it, but there were those types of issues all over the place. And it's really, look, it's a concern. I'll keep using the word. I'm not done with the season. How many times have we come out great and laid an egg, and how many times have we come out slow and turned it around? It's not an issue, but this game had a lot of problems where it's at base minimum, it sucked to watch. We were all excited. I at least wanted to see a game. It looked like it was going to be a game, and then we had some dropsies and things like that, Herndon and such. But it was just a turd to watch. And that's what really sucks above everything. We don't have to win these games. We just want our team to look like it's progressing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. If we're saying this is an evaluation year, if I'm evaluating game one, not the best football
Yeah,
that I've seen this team play, but it
they're
feels
all
like,
gone.
yeah. And I'm thinking, I wish I pulled up the stat. I don't have it right in front of me, and it's going to take me a little too long to get it up, I think. But man, if you look at Gase's statistics in terms of games he's lost by double digits, it's a lot. And this past one was only 10 points. It felt like it should have been 35. Like, this guy just can't keep
Yeah,
games
oh
close,
yeah.
is what it seems like. And that's at some point that has to be a trend or a common theme with him. And my gut feeling is right now, I don't know. I don't think he's our coach next year. I don't know if he's going to make it the rest of the year. The Johnsons have never fired a coach mid-season, but I think Gase might be that coach.
Wait, the coach that what gets fired
The,
midseason?
yeah, the Johnsons have never fired a coach mid-season, but I think Gase might be the first if we see more of what we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, and interestingly though, last year I felt similarly when we were 1-7. But then they did that turnaround, and it seemed like Darnold was the reason when he came out in the Dallas game, and then we had those couple of games with 34 points, 2 weeks in a row, and we looked okay at times, which saved him. This year, man, if we're like bottom tier offense, and the team is just kind of given up on him, I don't know if you can pull that magic act 2 years in a row where you're a bottom feeding losing team and everybody stays motivated. It's not realistic. They did a good job keeping the team together last year, but I don't see it happening again this year. They're already looking, to me, I mean, Crowder's press conference didn't look good to me. When he said everybody didn't know their assignments and where, everybody was on a different page, or however he put it, that's already sounding bad to me. So I think you're right, Ryan. I think that if he can't get this team to perform better, particularly on the offense, if this offense can't compete, there's no reason but to keep him on. I honestly feel that way. And then I would have to look at Gase. I'm sorry, at Joe Douglas. Say, yo, man, what are you up to over there? Get this guy out of here and let's start moving on. Put Greg Williams in the top spot. Jim Bob Cooter can call the plays just like he did when he was an offensive coordinator before. We have the coaches. Jefferson and Cooter can run this offense with no problem.
Yeah, look, I am sort of in that same mindset. V-Man, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Can we get a real owner? Cohen has the cash to burn." Cohen is the guy that just bought the Mets. I would be okay with this. Owner wise,
how's he doing?
It's been rough. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how much money they're going to spend in free agency. I have a few Met fan buddies that are wild about this move, so I'm excited
Really?
for them. I want to see the Mets. Yeah, I want to see the Mets do well.
No,
I
I
never
mean
say
about
I'm.
no, but the owner's good. I'm not talking about fanhood, but like, we think this is going to be a
Oh,
good owner for the Mets?
I have no idea. What Met fans are pretty pumped on is that this guy is loaded with money, which has seemed to be like the issue since the Mets lost all their money in the Madoff scandal, so they just haven't been able to acquire free agents. Yeah, so they've been a little rough. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. I think the next thing I want to touch on: what happens if the Jets land the number one pick? What is like of the teams that we saw on Sunday? There's two teams in particular that seemed like they were way out of their league. One was the Jets, the other was the Browns. I thought the Jaguars were a lock for the first pick, but based on what I saw at Gardner Minshew, I don't know if they're going to be bad enough to do it.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Like, that's a team very similar to the Dolphins last year. It's like these are teams that are openly tanking, and they look better than us. The Dolphins did last year, and the Jaguars looked good yesterday. No, I didn't watch the game. I watched some highlights and stuff like that. But they won. End of story, right? So they came out of the gate after all this stuff this offseason with them. They came out of the gate and they won. So if the Jets continue this way and they do get the first pick, that means Sam doesn't come out of this cloud here. He does not come out of this. In the event he does not, he looks completely atrocious. I think you got to consider quarterback. What I would hope is that if we get the number one pick and it's Sam's fighting and clawing for his life and making bad guys look good and all that kind of stuff, that we trade back and acquire more picks and then get an edge rusher or a wide receiver. I think edge rusher and wide receiver should be the picks if we do have our quarterback. But I gotta say, Ryan, I think if we're that bad, you gotta consider it. You have to.
Yeah, if I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, let's go down the rabbit hole of Sam looks bad. Let's say he looks bad the rest of the year. This will be the first what if. Actually, no. Well, let me echo what you said. And you hope that Sam is the future, and he's fighting, he's clawing, he's doing all that. I agree. If we're sitting at the first pick and he looks like he's good and he's losing but playing well, and in spite of Gase and everything, we get rid of Gase. We bring in a new head coach. We have the first overall pick. We trade down to the third pick, the fourth pick, some top 5. Stay in the top 5. Make sure you get an elite blue chip player. There's a good shot that the Jacksonville Jaguars could have that pick, that we're trading down to, unless Minshew is really the guy we saw on Sunday. There's going to be a few options. Someone's going to move up to try and take Trevor Lawrence. And if I'm the Jets and I already have 2 first-round picks and I can get another 2, and all of a sudden you have 4 first-round picks, or you have, 3 this year, 3 next year, that's a lot to surround your team with, and I'm willing to roll the dice on Sam long-term, at least, or maybe not long-term, but for the next 2 years, while we get these draft picks in place to just sort of surround him, because worst-case scenario, when I get into, say, year 5 of Sam, or, after year 5 of Sam and we're going into year 6, we don't know who our quarterback's going to be, I'm okay with trading an entire draft class to go up and get the quarterback we want, because that's just what you got to do. And at least you surrounded the team with talent. I would not want to fall to the third pick. If the Jets got the third pick and try to move up to get Trevor Lawrence, I think that would be a mistake. I think at that point you're just putting another young quarterback in a bad situation. Now, let's say the Jets get the first pick. We have earned the first pick. We have stunk the entire year. Sam doesn't look like he has progressed. Adam Gase, clearly gone at this point. Here's what I'm thinking. I know Joe Douglas loves him some Ravens. I would be looking at Greg Roman to be the next head coach of the New York Jets, the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. Then you head into free agency. You see who you can acquire, see what you can get, and now you have a very interesting situation. You have Sam Darnold, and you have the first overall pick. Now, what quarterback coming out seems like it would fit a Lamar Jackson style offense or a Colin Kaepernick style offense, which is what Greg Roman did out in the 49ers. Now, he also had Alex Smith playing pretty well. So there is that little aspect. If you think Sam Darnold could be an Alex Smith type player, or maybe Roman could surround Sam with that kind of talent, Greg Roman's the guy that I'm kind of looking at. But Trevor Lawrence could be sitting at number 1. If he thinks he could do what he did with Lamar Jackson with Trevor Lawrence, that would be a very, very interesting situation for the New York Jets. And then you look to possibly be trading Sam Darnold. Now, that being said, I don't necessarily want that, but that's the rabbit hole we're going down right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a fun rabbit hole. Wish we weren't doing it.
Whoop. Did I lose you, Green Bean? I lost Green Bean here. I guess his internet dropped. Give me just a second. I'll come over here so you can see my beautiful face. While we wait for Green Bean to hop back in the chat, or hop back in the screen, I'll go over some comment questions we got going on. Evan Wallman says, what is Lawrence going to do with the same team Darnold has? Now that, for me, is the golden question. I would not trade up for Trevor Lawrence. I would consider taking him if we had the number 1 overall pick. But I don't think you... there we go. Here is our buddy Green Bean. Yeah, I don't think you actively go into this situation and expect to get... Hey, Green Bean, you're back with us.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Sorry about that. That's all right. Where were we with the your breakdown?
Right. So I don't remember where I was. I just had a whole panic, stress level thing that I was over here moving,
It's all
plugging
right.
things in.
I had to like shift my head over so my head was like actually in frame.
I saw you because I have the YouTube page open so I can see the chat and everything. And I saw all of a sudden you were like in both boxes and you were kind of not in either one. I was like, oh man, look what I'm doing to this guy.
Oh,
So
jeez.
does it look a little bit better? I changed internets. I use
Yeah,
a
it looks like
different.
you're moving around. Yeah, you're moving around a little bit better right
Okay.
now.
Yeah, I know. I realized I was frozen. I'm sorry, guys. I really am. I'm trying. I have three different hotspots. I have AT&T towers. I have Verizon towers. I have a Wi-Fi Ranger. I have a Wii Boost cellular. I mean, I'm doing everything I can. I assure you, and I appreciate everybody being so nice about it. Nobody even said I suck yet. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, we were talking about Greg Roman. We were talking about the rabbit hole. So here's the thing: I really do believe, like I said, I support Gase. I want Gase to succeed. I want it because I don't want to do this again. I would love for him to be some idiot savant who can't talk with people, makes no friends, but is just good at football. I would love for that to be the case. Can you see me, Ryan? Am I okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, you're fine. You're moving.
Okay. All right,
I
good.
can hear you. I can see you.
I'm getting
What do you
nervous.
you got a little buffer over there? That's all right.
No, I looked at the YouTube. My YouTube page didn't load back again, so I'm just curious. So anyway, I fucking lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I want Gase to succeed. I'm sorry, I'm really panicking. I look calm, but I'm not right now. I'm like my eyes are all over. So, but if he do, but my honest gut feeling is that this guy sucks. Okay, he had one little blip of success. That was with Peyton Manning. The reason Peyton Manning loves him is because Adam Gase intellectually could keep up with him. And a lot of people can't. Peyton Manning is like so overly analytical, and his mind offensively, they could stay on the same page where I bet a lot of coaches and stuff couldn't. Peyton Manning was literally better than his coaches in some instances. So the fact that Adam Gase could hang with him made him think he's smart, but application is a whole different thing. We don't have Peyton Manning, that same analytical brain. We have Sam Darnold, and Adam Gase doesn't seem to be able to develop and kind of bring players up. He needs players that fit and all those kinds of things. And that's just, I don't feel like he's going to be the guy. I just don't. So with that said, I really fear that he's not going to suck enough that Joe Douglas is going to be motivated to cut him. I mean, to fire him. And the Johnsons are probably tired of paying two coaches at the same time. They've done it quite a few years in a row now. So I don't know. I'm afraid, man. I'd love to see Adam Gase make it, but I really don't think he's the guy. When it all falls down, I just don't think he's the guy. And I'd rather take care of that sooner than later. And I'm not a jump off the edge kind of guy. I'm not. I'm a homer, man. That's what I am. But I just don't think Adam Gase is the guy. And if we do that, I would actually be happy that Joe Douglas has the balls we need. He's already traded Jamal Adams, so we know he's got some gumption. But it's really going to be about whether or not he keeps Adam Gase. As if he does keep him, I think it's just more of the same for us, and that's sad, man. It sucks.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's easier to move on from Adam Gase and roll the dice with Sam Darnold because you have the quarterback and you got him under
Right.
contract for an additional 2 years on top of this year. So make the move, get the new head coach in here, and then see if you still have the ability to mold Darnold into the quarterback you want. Because I do feel like we got a good quarterback and we are ruining him right now by having
Right.
him with
We
Adam
are.
Gase. It's incredibly frustrating. We're lucky that we have Greg Williams as a backup head coach almost in a sense. And then yeah, I would say Jim Bob Cooter would be the offense coordinator because I would throw Loggins out with Gase. Those two would be
Oh yeah.
out together.
Yeah, he's got
That's
to go.
definitely
There's no reason to keep Dowell Loggins in this organization without Gase. And it's a crazy thing when you really look at it through objective eyes, why he's dragging this guy around with him. He's not respected in NFL circles. He's just not. He would never get an offensive coordinator job without Adam Gase, and here he is as our offensive coordinator. And then, therefore, Gase is our offensive coordinator, which means we don't really have a head coach, and that sucks. I'm a little tired of this with these guys that only run one side of the team, and then we have another coach running the other side of the team, and it's just I think you're right. We do have Greg Williams. As our defensive coordinator, and he is fine as an interim head coach. I don't know if he would be kind of be tired of being that guy. Like he keeps getting the interim job and then they let him go. I'm even fine with him staying on if the new coach should see fit. But whoever it is, Joe Douglas has to think long and hard about, is this the guy? Can he develop quarterbacks? Because Adam Gase has no history of doing such. And he's being painted. He has this label of a quarterback guru, and I don't see how he has that. People on ESPN talk about it. It's like, where did this come from? He didn't develop Peyton Manning. He got Peyton Manning, in the middle of his career, toward the end of his career, quite frankly. So anyway, like I said, I think the real crux here, I'm rooting for Adam Gase next week. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him to come out and say, you know what, I'm tired of this. Take the handcuffs off and just light it up with an amazing offense. Nothing would make me happier. I don't see it. And I think that Joe Douglas doesn't see it either. I hope he's not blinded by this friendship bullshit. If he sees it 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season, fucking get rid of him, man. Just get rid of him and let's move forward and see what we have in Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the route we sort of take here. And I very much like Greg Williams. I would be totally on board with keeping and retaining him because I feel like that keeps a form of semblance, like it's a regime change, but not a full regime change. And like as long as the new head coach wants Greg Williams in there, which I think anyone that's, watched the Jets defense is probably okay with doing that. It's one less guy you have to bring in and possibly be tied to and locked in. Like worst case scenario, if the defense plays bad, you fire Greg Williams, then you get a new guy. So you have that sort of fallback plan. Greg Roman's the guy that I'd really like, and the Ravens connection there I think is big. I think him and Bieniemy are going to be the two guys that people are going to look at after the season and say, okay, these guys deserve a head coaching shot at this point.
And I think that I'm sorry, go on, Ryan.
No, go on. Absolutely.
I was just going to say, and I think that connection that you're talking about might actually give us a leg up with the relationship, that Joe Douglas and the Ravens have. That might actually help us. And don't forget, is his name Chad Alexander? What's his name? The director of player personnel.
Player personnel. Yeah, I don't know his actual name, but I know he's got close ties with Douglas.
Yeah, he was on the Ravens last year. So, I mean, our ties are close with them. And Ozzie Newsome is still there as well. So, anyway, I think that might give us a little bit of a leg up if all things are equal. But then don't forget, we got to talk somebody into coming to the friggin' lowly-ass Jets, man. We are a problem, man. We're an issue.
We're going to look really good, though. We're going to have a top 5 cap situation, a very high draft pick with 2 draft picks, potentially a franchise quarterback if you believe in Sam Darnold, if you're that new head coach, or you have the ammo to go get your own quarterback. I think we are far more attractive this time around than when we got Adam Gase. I believe, at least. I think having Douglas here, I think so. I mean, I think worst case scenario, although I guess when you got Adam Gase, you had a first year, just freshly off a first year of Sam Darnold, and Sam had a few good games where there was hope. So I could see you being a little more leery of that. But
yeah, and we had a top 3 pick. The thing is this, we had a Super Bowl winning coach saying, the only job I'll take is the New York Jets. That was because of Sam Darnold. We had our pick of the litter. Matt Rule was coming here. We forced coaches on him, one being Adam Gase, by the way. We wanted him to have Adam Gase and Greg Williams as his coordinators, and he said, go to hell. So we had Matt Rule, we had McCarthy, and Klingberry came here first before he went to the Cardinals. If we would have offered the job to him, he would have stayed here too. So we were as attractive as I've ever seen us because of that 1 year of Sam Darnold. I think you're right that 2 number 1 picks, a top 5 cap situation, and all that sort of stuff is going to be attractive. But we also have 2 more years or 3 more years of Sam Darnold regressing, which might not be what somebody wants to take on, especially if Douglas is saying, "Hey, I'm high on this kid." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think with the injuries that we've seen, I I've been blaming Adam Gase for the for the injuries the last 2 years, and I started doing a little bit of a deeper dive. I was on Jet Nation. We were going through some of the forums, and someone posted a graph of the Jets' money on IR the last like 20 or not 20, the last 10 years. It was like dating back to 2013. The Jets have been one of the top 3 most injured teams from that point to like 2018, like prior to Gase even getting here. And then the last 2 years have just been brutal. So it's not even just with Gase. It's for some reason, the Jets always have this huge, like, oh, we have a great medical facility and all this other stuff, but we wind up getting a bunch of injuries. So, like, what's going on? Are we just drafting injury-prone players? Are we, training in a way that's incorrect? I don't know. We got rid of our head personal trainer and brought someone else in. Like, I don't know what else you could do.
Yeah, well, I think what we did, we actually just promoted his underling. So he's been here too for a while. But that is an interest. I didn't see that thread. I really got to take a look at that one. That's peak interest for me. But you know what? You know what the thing is? I mean, and this goes more tinfoil hat kind of stuff. But I think one of the other issues, Ryan, is that people don't feel like playing through injury for teams that are dog shit. You know what I mean? Like if they're in the playoff hunt or any of that stuff, they're a legitimate championship caliber team. Guys that have a hamstring, have a pull, have a low ankle sprain, they'll probably be more willing to play through it than for a team that's 1-7 or something like that, or ultimately 3-13 or whatever it's going to be. If you have a little stinger, you're like, I'm injured. You know what I mean? I think that's probably something to do with it too. And then drafting guys like Blake Cashman and Blasan Austin, coming off 2 solid years of injury, doesn't help either. D. Milliner, Chad what was his name? McDougal. Remember the cornerback? I want to say Chad. I don't know if that's right.
No, it was. Hold on. We got our buddy. We got our buddy Mario here. Let's throw him in. Get someone else in here. Bam!
There he is.
Oh, there's Mario in his
guy.
goddamn helmet. Look at this Jamoke.
He's wearing the helmet. He thinks we're going to throw stuff at him. We're not going to throw stuff, man.
Probably. You know what? Pappy always told me to be prepared,
Yeah. Well, good for you. It looks like you've had that one for a long time.
It's the kid's helmet. It fits my head. How sad is that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Dude, it has been a rough week for us New York Jet fans. I know you guys have got to be pretty pumped. When I saw you tagged us in a tweet, both me, Green Bean, and O'Leary. Oh, Josh Allen is going to have more rushing yards than Le'Veon Bell this week. Book it. And I was like, nah, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I see it. I'm just like, damn it.
It was, we were talking about bold predictions. I'd done with the Cold Front Report, another Buffalo streaming, kind of like hashtag and stuff like that. So I'd made that same prediction on there, and I said something about Diggs only having 80 yards as my other bold prediction. He had 86, and a lot of people were going, "You're out of your mind with these predictions. What's wrong with you?" So it was crazy though, because I expected a lot better showing. I really did. I really expected the Jets to compete in this game, and maybe I was called nuts by a lot of the Bills fan base. So it's I can't imagine what it's like, because Josh Allen misses a throw in the back of the end zone and John Brown was wide open. He's getting torched in the Buffalo media, mostly guys like that, and I can't imagine what the blowback is on Darnold.
Yeah, it's been rough. We've been talking about it a little bit on this stream. We'll get into it with you a little bit as well, but there are people calling for Darnold's head. They're calling him a bust. They're saying, Gase has got to get out of here. Draft Trevor Lawrence, tank for Trevor. Like that's the words we're hearing out of New York and the New York media right now. I mean, there's plenty of guys that are there. There seems to be a clear division of camps. There's the, hey, I believe in Sam Darnold, or I want to wait and see the rest of the season, and then there's the, no, we've seen enough. Like, we couldn't get anything going. We got to just move on from him and get Trevor Lawrence in this next draft. So we are absolutely getting torched. It did make me smile a little bit when I watched Allen throw 10 feet over over his head. That was like, oh, that's the guy I remember. Like, what happened? Where's this 312 yards come from and the friggin' 57 rushing yards? But I do want to point out the one prediction I did have correct, and that is, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but we picked how far the first punt would go. Ooh. And, yeah, so Mario, you guessed 36 yards. Matt guessed 44 yards. Green Bean guessed 66 yards. I guessed 57 yards. And the first punt went 58 yards. So even with Bob Barker rules, this man had the punt correct. And I told you the punting game would be what keeps us in it, and it didn't at all. Nothing. Nothing kept us in this game. This game was over after the first series. The first series was basically the epitome of what the entire game was. The Jets go 3 and out, couldn't get anything done, punt the ball to the Bills. The Bills drive right down our throat. Allen makes a goofy kind of mistake. The Jets get the ball back, and that's sort of how the game went, aside from the Bills, scoring. And aside from, the 2 fumbles and the 2 missed kicks, like, you guys really should have won this game probably 45-10. Like, the Jets should have not had it as close as it was.
And the thing that kills me is that if you're a Jet fan and you can honestly say that on the bench is a former Super Bowl winning quarterback, if you think that the Jets would have fared better with him in the game, with Flacco in the game, then okay, then you really don't believe in Darnold. But if you could honestly say that, no, Darnold's our best chance to win, which I feel he is. I really think at this point, I think you got to get him away from Gase. Somebody FM just put in the chat, he said Rosen and Baker are better than Darnold. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't. I don't agree on that. I'm just wholeheartedly in my evaluation of Darnold. I think he has all the talent in the world. I think it just seems like a mess right now. It really just does.
Yeah, we were talking about the whole Adam Gase thing, and I think I don't think Adam Gase is going to get it turned around right now. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see more of this kind of sputtering and stuttering offense, and we're going to get close to halfway through the season, and the Johnsons, this will be the first time they fire a coach midseason. I think that's what's going to wind up happening. Ooh. Greg Williams will be the interim head coach for the time being, and then we'll look for a new head coach after the season. Now, I certainly hope that's not the case. I hope Adam Gase and Sam Darnold figure it out, and they just, this is a preseason game 1 for the Jets, and because you have a new offensive line, and because you have, the revolving door at wide receiver right now, and, limited training camp and all the funky stuff going on, that could be the case, and then maybe it'll, that's the best case scenario for me. When you look at the backup quarterback situation, you have Flacco, but Flacco's going to be out, I think, for another week or 2. You can't actually play him. He's still recovering from his injury that he had last year. Wide receiver wise, we're in rough shape. Mims just went to the IR. Let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about the injuries the Jets had. The first series for the Bills, Cashman gets knocked out. So now we're without Mosley, Williamson, Peanut, Cashman. We're on our 5th and 6th inside linebackers. Our 6th inside linebacker is an outside linebacker that literally knows nothing about inside linebacker. It's just see ball, get ball. That was all we were playing at that point. There's no defensive alignments or anything that you could kind of figure out. And then you lose Bell at the end of the half to the hamstring injury. We just put him on IR. He's out for the next 3 weeks. You lose Mims. Mims is now out for the next 3 weeks. What kills me is, why didn't you put Mims on IR before this game? So that way he misses the Bills game, the 49er game, and the Colt game. Now he's going to have to miss the Denver game, which I thought we might have had a shot at if they didn't have Von Miller in there. Maybe the Jets have a shot at winning that game. But now it's, less and less weapons. The Jets are in a weird spot.
I always thought, as far as Greg Williams goes, I thought the air of unpredictability would have probably been a positive for the New York Jets in this game, because you didn't have Mosley, you didn't have Adams, and you don't know that Cashman's going to go down like that on the first series. But what Williams has been able to do with defenses and just dialing up a bunch of stuff, and you got a lot of guys in there who aren't really big name guys, so they were going to go crazy for Greg Williams to try to earn their spot. I think who was it, May? who took over Adams' role. I like what he did.
Oh, yeah.
He was all over the place. He was just flying all over the field. But that being said, you do lose some weapons. But, I mean, obviously you still have Crowder. You still have Herndon. Those are two guys that can be formidable weapons for you on the Jet offense. And what's the backup running back situation look like with Bell not in there? What do you guys got?
Yeah, it's bad. RJ McPot, he says, are we doing super chat questions? Yes, absolutely. That is a great question in a super chat. You should have put your question in there so that way you don't have to do it again. But yes, we are doing it. Our running back situation is bad. So now we don't have Bell. P. Ryan, the running back that we drafted this year, is injured. So it's literally Frank Gore is our number one. You have Kalen Ballage from the Dolphins, who we just signed back today. Just signed him back today.
Yeah.
Dude, he failed his physical when we traded for him.
Why not bring him in?
Yeah, now he's back. And then you have Adams on the practice squad. I'd have to imagine they'll call him back up and keep him around. I like the very small sample size we saw from him. I think him and Gore will actually perform better in Gase's offense than what we got out of Bell. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe losing Bell is almost a blessing in disguise, just trying to see what the running game could look like without him in there. Now, I think Bell as a receiver, that's where we should have been using him. He should have been lining up in the slot. Don't even bother running him into the line of scrimmage at this point. Green Bean, what do you think about that?
Well, look, first I have to address something. Number one, I want to say that I'm sorry to Mario because, he doesn't even get a chance to come here and bust balls. This is when you beat a team like this, it removes the fun of being the victor in these types of situations. That also shows how bad we really suck, because that when someone comes in here after a rivalry game like this and they're like, "Hey guys, I'm really sorry," kind of a mentality, that just shows when that's what's called pity. When other teams' fans pity us, that's when you suck. It's not being 32nd in the team as far as power rankings and all that, or in the league. I mean, it's when you have a Buffalo Bills fan come on here and literally go, like that. That's when we're in trouble. So I want to say sorry, Mario. It would have been more fun if you can come on here. I feel bad. We should all apologize to you to remove this fun from you, and that's really I'm telling you, that's when it gets grim, and I've been in that position before. I know it's very rare. It was back in the the early 2000s or something, but yeah, man. So that's when we're in big trouble. I will say this: I do believe that this is pretty much a preseason game. It's one of those things, and we got into this conversation last week, where you guys being together is a positive, but us not having any time together could have also been a positive, because there's no way to game plan for us. We saw that was absolutely not the case. That was my big argument last week, that we're the secret Super Bowl team. Not the case. We have tons of issues, and we have a lot to work on. But I do think that Ballage is the answer. I think that him failing his physical was just a way to keep our 7th round pick. And Joe Douglas is a magician. And Ballage, you better watch out for him, man. He's going to steal the show. That's what I think.
Oh man, I could only hope that's the situation. Before we jump over to Mario's thoughts, guys, I want to announce we do have a new sponsor for the NFL season, MyBookie AG. The NFL season, anyone who wants to sign up with MyBookie AG and uses promo code JT receives 100% bonus match up to $1,000. Use promo code JT. Bet with me, win some money. MyBookie AG, promo code JT. Double your money today. MyBookie AG, promo code JT. Gotta do some gambling. But Mario, respond. Respond.
No, it's one of those things, and I think Green Bean will appreciate this, in the fact that if the Bills lose, it doesn't affect my personal day-to-day activities, because I didn't have any kind of control over how they performed and what they did. And Ryan has watched our channel long enough to know that that's not really the vision or the message or our philosophy over on hashtag. When we talk about other teams, or we talk about the Bills, this and that. And as far as that goes, I had no control over what the Bills did on Sunday or what the Jets did. But Ryan and I have talked at length about, we think that the Bills and the Jets, you always got to take care of your own house first. You always got to take care of the division. And they seem to have been going along this similar path where, okay, you build up the skill positions first, then you build up the line. There's going to be some growing pains in there with that. You try to get a couple stud guys here and there. You save some cap money. You roll it over in the next year, and you try to do a bunch of different things. As far as the Jets go, it's like I'm not one. That's not my personality. I'm not going to come in here and just totally rip on the passengers, rip on the Jets, stuff like that. I try to look at the positives in it all. And the fact is, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen threw the ball 46 times because they knew that Quinnen Williams was going to be a problem in the middle there, and the Bills couldn't get their running game off. Allen was the only guy who was getting any kind of yardage, and that was basically because he was scrambling a couple times. The Bills introduced the pistol formation, which they haven't run very much last year. So a lot of that stuff was built around some of the studs and some of the key players that you have there. The Bills made it their focus to try to limit Crowder, but we had Teron Johnson on him, and Darnold was trying to go his way, but that new makeshift line that was just put together has to have some continuity, has to build some chemistry first. So in that respect, I try to look at it in the whole, like if I was just trying to observe a team, it was not pity at all, Green Bean. I'm just trying to break down what I saw on Sunday. I was like, I saw the Bills start to have more, they were crisper on offense and defense, and their defense, everyone knows around the league how good their defense is. And the Jets are like, okay, what can we do well? What can we improve on? And what's going to happen moving forward, especially with the injuries? Because that's the one thing that you never account for. You never account for, how are we going to do this with injuries? But I think Douglas is the type of guy that's going to keep his ear to the ground and try to get some quality players in here to replace those guys.
Yeah, that's the hope. And Douglas, I still say in Joe we trust, because I like the moves he made. Yeah, we haven't gotten to see Mims. We haven't gotten to see P. Ryan. Cameron Clark is out. It's like we've seen a lot of issues. Our punter looks really good. Our left tackle looks really good. So like the little bits and pieces that we did get glimpses of, I've enjoyed so far. Zuniga's out. Like literally, I feel like we didn't even have a draft class this year. That's kind of where we're at right now. I just want to see the offensive line so we can grade Sam Darnold. That's really my focal point right now. Now I want to see Mims come in, because not having Mims in there I think is definitely hurting us. He wasn't here all training camp basically. Mm-hmm. But just getting that type of athlete in would be a huge boost to the New York Jets. And it's just, I don't know where we go from here. I guess we could kind of transition this possibly into some of the rumors that are kind of kicking around today. Odell Beckham Jr. and Allen Robinson are both potentially on the trading block or requesting trades. Green Bean, is there a fit there? Could you see the Jets making a move for a wide receiver to help out our young quarterback?
I could see it, but I don't think that I wouldn't imagine Joe Douglas is going to give up any of his premium draft capital for one of those two guys. And if I had my druthers, I would choose Allen Robinson over Odell Beckham Jr. I'm almost done with these LSU type, these just like they're very prima donna-esque, and there's a lot going around him. Odell hasn't been so much of a problem lately, like he was in New York and everything, but I think that he doesn't bring the right energy, not what Joe Douglas is trying to do, so I don't see it. But I think that we could see something. I just don't know if those are the guys. Like I said, I would prefer Robinson, but I think Joe Douglas, look, the truth is that Perryman was open someplace. Crowder was open someplace. Herndon was open. Darnold was missing them, man. Not to say they were open all day, because I don't think that's the case, but we were not taking advantage of the opportunities that we did have. So these guys that we have, Joe Douglas can look at this tape and say, dude, they were open. Why should I use a third-round pick or a second-round pick to bring in Robinson when Perryman was open and Crowder was open? And Berrios was open. Like I said, not all day, but they were there. The opportunities were there. So and then they were dropping them on top of that. So I don't know. I don't think it's beyond him to do it. As we've seen, he's not afraid to trade. I just don't know. He worked hard on gaining all this draft capital. It took him a year and a half to do it. I don't know how willing he's going to be to get rid of it.
Mario, what do you think about the Jets, and should they potentially make a move for one of the wide receivers OBJ or Allen Robinson?
Well, I was thinking initially, right on the surface, the first thing that comes to mind is the whole Greg Williams OBJ dynamic that
Right.
everyone knows about. It's well touted. The other thing you have to think about with Allen Robinson, I was just pulling up overthecap.com, and any of the passengers in the cockpit, if you guys want a good resource about salary cap and a bunch of things with your team, it's a great resource. I just went and checked. Rashad Perriman is going to be a free agent next year. The Jets have, I'm so used to saying the Bills, the Jets have $30 million under the cap currently. So whether Douglas decides to go with a free agent that's really not on the market, no one's signed yet. I mean, Devontae Freeman is still out there in case you needed some running back help. Who knows what kind of contract he's going to want. But Allen Robinson, you're only going to have him for this year. So I don't know, just like Greenbeat said, how much of the draft capital are you willing to spend on a guy like Allen Robinson that has to sign a new deal in the following year? The benefit that the Buffalo Bills, if I could just transfer it over for a second, when they traded their first round pick for Stephon Diggs, he still had 4 years left on his current deal that he had. So the Bills were essentially trading a first round pick minus the 5th-year option for a number one wideout who ended up being Justin Jefferson going to Minnesota. But in that sense, you have to think long term down the line. If you're going to trade for an Allen Robinson, Juju's even a free agent next year. You got to re-sign these guys. So how could you shuffle the deck of the current players that you have? Plus, you have to realize Quinnen Williams is going to be coming up for a contract. So is Darnold's very soon. So those are some things that you have to take into consideration when it's not just, all right, let's get this guy. You can't do that with the cap the way it is. And I think Douglas has been very close to the vest, but has been very frugal with some of the things that he's been able to spend his money on.
Yeah, I agree. I think OBJ is definitely someone that I don't see as an option for the New York Jets. I think him accusing Greg Williams of trying to injure him in that preseason game, I think is, that sort of nixes that. I think the personality just doesn't suit well with our foundation that Douglas seems to be bringing in. But Allen Robinson, that intrigues me, and I don't know what you'd have to do to get him. I would imagine a second-round pick is probably what's going to have to happen to get it done. He is in the last year of his deal. I want to say he's due about $10 million. It was 10.9 was his guaranteed this year for his base salary, and they've played one game, so it's probably around 10 at this point. I would bring him in, but it would be on the condition that he signs a long-term deal, and a long-term deal meaning, a 4-year deal. Like maybe we get him this year plus an additional 3 years. Now, after this season, Bell's more than likely going to get cut. I don't see us holding on to him beyond this season. We'll have Crowder under contract for next year. I do think we could potentially see Perriman gone. He may not be coming back, but I think the Jets would want to go after Juju if he hits free agency. You just don't know if he's going to. That's the biggest thing. Like, you don't want to put all your chips in one basket and hope that you get him. You could draft another wide receiver early, but that doesn't mean they're going to have success to start out. Like, Sam needs help now. Like, let's get a good receiver now. Allen Robinson's 27 years old. He can come in immediately and help out Sam Darnold. Now, that being said, he's not going to know Adam Gase's offense. You're just going to have to say, like, okay, this is the route you're running. Just go. Like, don't worry about anything else. Just take off. And last year he had, 1,100 yards with Trubisky throwing him the ball? I do think Sam Darnold's better than Trubisky. Now, I guess it's hard to argue one way or the other with the performance we saw on Sunday, but I think Sam's better than Mitch, and I think the biggest issue with trying to trade for Robinson is, would Robinson want to go to another team that may not be quite there, or might have a questionable quarterback situation or a questionable coaching situation where it might be in limbo? He's at the prime of his career. He's going to want to go to a team like the 49ers, who we play this week, like the Patriots, who need wide receiver help. There's a lot of other teams that would probably give up a pick that is higher and then may not even have to re-sign him. They might just be okay with the 1-year rental.
Well, the one thing that you can do, and I'll kick this over to Greenby to get his thoughts on it, if you can make it a conditional pick. So let's say, for instance, the Jets decided to trade a 4th-round pick for a guy who's going to be a free agent next year. Now, if Allen Robinson happens to sign a deal with the New York Jets, then that 4th-round pick becomes a 2nd-round pick. So if you know you're guaranteed, you're basically covering your bases here with the 4th round versus a 2nd-round pick. And a lot of teams during the draft, what they'll do is they'll bundle 2 fourths for a 3rd, and they'll end up moving up. So in the Bears' mind, that'll be something that they'll want to run through as well. I think Pace is there. I think that's their GM. He's been pretty. He's been a mover and a shaker during the draft as far as that goes. But as far as you have to realize something too, and a lot of the passengers need to know this. With the way the season is going to play out, the revenue for the NFL, and this is like the business side, this is the revenue that the teams are going to get this year aren't going to be as well. So you want to save as much cap that you can roll over, because you're not going to have that $10 to $12 million increase that you usually do to cover your draft picks for next year. And a lot of teams might lose out on a lot of players coming up next year that hopefully Douglas can snipe, for the New York Jets and say, listen, we got this up and coming quarterback. We can spend money elsewhere for a couple of years. We can put you on a 2-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal. Some of those guys. So I would look more toward older wide receivers, not really guys that are in the prime of their career. They're going to get 5-year contracts. Maybe you want guys that want 2 or 3-year deals to try to resurrect their career a little bit. And I know that kind of sounds, funny, talking about the Jets, but it seems like a down mood in here. I'm trying to lift everybody up. But what I'm saying is, that's what the Bills have kind of done, was they sign guys to 2 or 3-year prove it deals. And they say, listen, you're going to prove it here. You're coming to Buffalo, which was a wasteland for a long time. We all know. So if you can prove yourself, then we'll reward you. And that's what the Bills have done. So maybe that's the same blueprint, so to speak, that would go on with the Jets.
Yeah. Well, you got to look. Oh, no, sorry, Green Bean, you go.
No, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. You got it.
Well, so I'm thinking, when I'm thinking about veteran wide receivers who could be coming up after the year, it may not be this season, but after the season, I think Amari Cooper's probably hitting free agency. I think they're going to have to pay Dak. It's a reason why they took CeeDee Lamb. They have Gallup there. So I think one of those guys is probably going to be available, whether it's through cut or trade potentially. Sort of trying to think of guys around the league that might be available. Juju's really the one that sort of sticks out because he's got that connection with Sam from USC. You got to help Sam. And I don't know if there's a wrong answer to bringing in wide receivers at this point. I think you just throw bodies at him and just hope someone does well. Green Bean touched on it before, though. Guys were getting open and Sam was just missing them. Like, there was that play. It drove me bananas. And I talked about it in my 5 takeaways. Was Sam rolled out to his right. It was in the third quarter, I believe. Rolled out to his right and ran out of bounds 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage rather than throwing the ball away. That is a rookie mistake. You cannot be running out of bounds taking a loss when all you have to do is lob the ball past the line of scrimmage and you don't have to take an intentional grounding penalty. And then on that play, if you watch it, Crowder is wide open. There's like a 6-yard gap between him and the defender. He is calling for it. His hands up in the air. Perriman was screaming down the seam, and he was double covered, but he blew past both corners, the safety and the corner, and was wide open. So we had the opportunity there for a huge play, and Sam just didn't pull the trigger on it. And I'm hoping that was a calculated move on his part, where it was, hey, I don't know if I want to throw this ball because I threw a questionable ball earlier in the game. It got intercepted, and now I'm thinking back and almost seeing ghosts in the secondary by not pulling the trigger on a throw that he really should have done, or he's just missing it outright. And it's, that could be the issue too. Green Bean, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting too when you talk about the ghosts and all that sort of stuff. We all know that when an athlete is forced to think while they're playing, when there's too much analytical, intellectual energy going on, that's the worst place that they can be. They want to play, without having to overanalyze every move. And by the time you're done analyzing it, you just ran out of bounds 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, So that's what we're seeing here. Now, I think the real issue is why is he in that place? Now, we have an offensive line. While they're not perfect, like we said, we saw some missed assignments. We saw that. They were giving him time. We saw the receivers, again, not open all day, but there were open receivers. He was either missing them or not seeing them, holding the ball too long. Even on this 2 of the sacks, it was primarily because he held the ball too long. So I don't know if getting a receiver for Sam, it's nice to just say that. It's nice to say, yes, we need more weapons. It's not really arguable that we need more weapons for Sam, but does he have enough right now to at least be competitive? And I would argue that he does. Now, Mims is hurt, so that would be another guy in there. Obviously, Hogan isn't the best guy in the world that you want to see, but Berrios was open, Perryman was open, and Crowder were open on numerous plays. Sam either missed them by a long shot, by the way. It looked very reminiscent of what Mario was talking about when Allen sailed the ball 10 yards over his head in the end zone. It was that type of stuff, 2 yards in front of him. So I don't know what the real problem is, but I don't think that it looks like Sam's hitting everybody on the numbers and they're dropping it, or there's no separation. Then you start talking about, hey, he needs another wide receiver, and I'm willing to give away a 3rd-round pick for that. And like was said, maybe a 4th-round pick, and if he hits certain milestones, then he gets, it turns into a 3rd. Whatever it might be. But those picks are valuable, man. And let's not, especially for somebody trying to rebuild the team. And long form build the team, long game, so you don't want to just start throwing 4th-round picks out for 1-year rentals or bringing in guys that are, don't forget, when a guy's traded, they might agree to the trade, but if they're not necessarily happy to be traded, you know what I mean? Like McDougal, we saw him when he was traded. Yeah, he has a really, I love the way he handled it, but he can't be happy that the Seahawks, a perpetually winning organization, sent him to the lowly Jets as kind of an add-on to a package for a player that's taking his position. Nobody's happy about that stuff. So why would somebody get traded to the Jets? And like Mario said too, yeah, the Bills, look, we had a time when we sucked for a while, and then we became the team. Look, when LaDainian Tomlinson had a choice between us and the Vikings, he chose us. The money was all equal. He chose us because we were the more attractive destination at the time. The Jets are not the more attractive destination. When they send you to the Jets right now and for the past 10 years, it is a punishment, man. It's like sending you to Siberia. That's what it is, and nobody wants to do that. So again, all of the potential negatives that would be involved in a trade outweigh the benefit for me. Especially when you start factoring in how long it's going to take him to get the offense and all that kind of stuff. I think Sam has enough. The line is giving him enough time. He was getting 3 seconds all day long. They're giving him enough time. The receivers are getting open. Like I said, if he was hitting them and they're dropping it, different story. He was not hitting them. So that's not where the problem is. And I don't see Joe Douglas giving draft capital away again that he worked his ass off to get, made some really big boy decisions. I don't know if that's going to be what we're going to be seeing and if it's even the right thing. Plus, let me say one more thing. Plus, I have a sneaking suspicion that we're looking for excuses to get Gase out of here, and he's not going to help that.
Mario, you look like you had something to say.
I did. You know what? It's just a couple of points. Not to, because he makes excellent points. I'm just like I said, Paul. This is what Paul's conditioned me to do, is to think of the other side while someone's making points, just to have discussion here and there. The thing about it that I see it is this. Point one is, how much of that was the futility of the Jets versus how elite this defense may be in the Buffalo Bills. And we asked that question during our post game, like, are the Jets, because I saw guys open too. I'm sitting there going, hey, he didn't hit this guy, line broke down, this happened, this adjustment didn't happen there. Okay, I understand that. The Buffalo Bills were already touted as having a great defense coming into the season. It could have been that with the abridged preseason that we talked about, no preseason games, the abridged camp, I mean, that there was nothing trying to get offensive continuity with that many new moving parts without any preseason games is almost impossible to do with a team that was returning 10 of 11 starters on their defense. So it's tough. And a defense that was ranked in the top 5. That's number one. Number two, I just took a quick rundown of all of the free agent linemen that if Douglas decided to go that route, and a lot of them are in their 30s, on their last legs, literally, and it would be tough in that respect. I could see Douglas giving up draft capital for the simple reason that there's no college season. How are you actually going to scout these guys coming out? I think that's going to weigh huge on some teams, and they may trade possible talent for proven talent. So because there's no season, there's no college. How are you going to scout these guys? How are you going to bring them into camp? They're going to have a whole season off. But the thing is, he may look at it and say, listen, we can't accurately scout this guy. We can't accurately scout this guy. How bad do we want to put a rookie in front of Darnold again? Let's try to look at the landscape of the NFL of these players that are maybe 31, 32, like the receivers too. You talk about Allen Robinson. He's 28 years old. You got Marvin Jones, who's going to be a free agent next year at 31. Will Fuller's 27. Rashard Higgins, who has some familiarity with Williams, is 27. Chris Godwin's 25. I don't think he wants to play for a rookie quarterback next year after Brady's out of there. There's an option for you. But my point is this: the onus of free agency and the type of contracts that are going to be delved out, I think, are going to be so much more valuable than draft picks, because you can't see any of these guys. You can't see these guys come out of college.
Yeah, those are great points. And that's where I think that's exactly where you're going to have to weigh your options. I think that's also what might create a little bit of a market for Le'Veon Bell midseason. Now, I've speculated that Bell could get moved, and I think the Jets would honestly take anything. I think they could take a 5th round pick if it means moving the money off the books now and getting him somewhere else, because or maybe they eat the whole contract and they get a higher draft pick because of it. I'm all for buying a draft pick if I'm the New York Jets. Green Bean, what are you thinking?
Well, look, number one, let me say this. It seems like I'm sketching out a little bit. I am sorry. Just let me know if you're not hearing me or anything. I'm over here talking and shit, and then my thing freezes, and so I apologize again for my internet. But yeah, those are really great points, and I think what I would look at to combat that is that Joe Douglas decided to trade who many think is the best player on the Jets. At minimum top 3 of our players, let's say, if you argue Sam Darnold or whatever. So one of the best players on the Jets, he just traded it for draft capital in 2021 and 2022. So that leads me to believe they have at least some confidence in their ability to scout these players, even the scouting reports that are up to now. Okay. Now that could mean that we got ammo, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to trade for fucking Aaron Donald. I mean, who knows what they're really doing? Because I do understand, and I do think that there is validity to the idea that a proven player, you could argue that somebody who's proven is more valuable this year in particular than a college kid. And I don't discount that. Again, I think the situation, you have to factor in how someone's going to feel being traded to the Jets, and he can't overlook that. You don't want to bring in malcontents, like, for example, the OBJ thing, and it was a great point that Mario made. I actually forgot about that, but it's so true. You think OBJ, after all that shit with Greg Williams, I don't really see it being a good fit. But we have to remember that if somebody gets traded to the Jets in their current state, they're not going to be happy about it. So there's all those factors going on right now. I think you gotta really weigh that stuff up. And look, your defense, the Buffalo Bills defense, no one's going to take anything away from it. We knew who we were playing before we went in, and I think there's a lot to be said for the disguising of pressures and all those kinds of things. It's a well-run defense, in addition to having sincerely, like, truly talented players out there too. So the schematically, it's a strong defense. And player-wise, talent-wise, it's a strong defense. That all said, we're talking about a guy with a football in his hand and another guy waving his arms in front of him that doesn't have anybody around him. I mean, this is fucking, what do you call it? Sandlot stuff, throwing the ball. So something's wrong. You know what I mean? There's something. And like Ryan said, maybe he had a talking to, hey, we don't want to see high or low percentage throws and all that kind of stuff. So we don't know what's going on there. And I think a lot of it can be attributed to the quality of the defense that we're playing in a very similar way to, look, Allen's, he's not, he's not running by chance. This is what the guy does. He's good at it, and we couldn't contain it. So that goes as a positive for the Bills. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, hey, we just had some wrinkle they threw at us. No, we knew Allen was going to run, and we couldn't stop it. So that goes that goes as a good mark to the Bills. But I think there's something going on, and like I said, it doesn't look to me like right now, it's as funny as it is to say this, it's not the receivers. They were open. Mm-hmm. There were times they were open. So I don't know about now. Look, if there's somebody who wants out, let's say Robinson wants out and he says, I'd love to go to the Jets. I love Sam Darnold, and we trade a 2nd round pick for somebody and then we extend them. Oh yeah, I'm great. I'm all about it. I just don't see. I find it difficult to believe anybody's going to feel that way about fucking coming here. You know what I mean?
But
Yeah, I hear you. Now we got a half hour left in the show. I do want to get on to week 2 and some of the preview aspects for that. But guys, we have 253 people in this chat right now, and there's only 66 likes. I want to see this up over 125. I want us doubling what we got right now. So do us a favor, if you like the content, hit the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us grow the channel overall. If you have not subbed up Green Bean or Mario, their links are in the description down below. Make sure you sub them up. They have some great content. Green Bean, obviously the Jets fan. Mario is just wrong, with the Bills over there. No, great content.
Before you get to the preview, I just want to extend one more thing to Green Bean, is the fact that the one thing that the Jets I always felt had that the Bills didn't have was the allure of New York, the Mecca. You know what I mean? So I think that if you have a guy, if you're going to say we're going to give him millions of dollars and he's going to come to New York City, that may sway, because when you came to the Bills, it wasn't like you had New York City there. It wasn't like you came there. It seems like you came there to play if you wanted to be there. If players want to go to New York and you're giving them millions of dollars to go to New York, that may be their central focus, and then football may not be. So that's the thing that was always the turning point for me. I was like, man, who wouldn't want to go to New York City and for millions of dollars and play football? Like, that would just be amazing to me.
It's a good point, but don't forget too that the taxes are higher there too. A lot of people factor that into their contracts and stuff that.
Oh yeah, that's why so many players go to Florida. There's no state tax.
That's right. Everybody loves playing
Florida,
down there.
Dallas, Arizona. Those DeAndre Hopkins got to be rolling it. He's just like no state income tax.
Did you see his tweet or Instagram post, whatever it was? He said, "I am so grateful to be a part of this team." I think it had that had something to do with it.
Well,
for sure.
When Mario Williams signed in Buffalo, they had that built into his contract to pay the taxes of his salary. That's how much of an important it is for some of these guys. So
yeah, for sure.
Now let's move on to our week 2 matchup. The Jets are facing the San Francisco 49ers, and it is going to be a very interesting game, to say the least. There's a few things that do or could possibly go the Jets' way, even with hearing the news of Bell being out, Mims being out, Cashman being out, along with all the other players that we're currently missing. But it seems like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle could both be out for the 49ers, which means I'm not that scared of the 49ers' weapons. I think their running backs are good, but I think the Jets' run defense is good enough to stop those running backs and neutralize that. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is not Josh Allen. I think he's not going to have the threat of running on us the way Allen did. I think the Jets are going to have a hard time with Allen twice and with Cam Newton twice. I think that's just the style of quarterback that is going to give our defense trouble. I'm not as afraid of Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, our defense needs to be able to stop that, and our offense is really what gives me the heebie-jeebies here. I think it's if the Jets cannot get an offensive push on that offensive line, get the running game going, get us into manageable downs and distances, 3rd and 4, 2nd and 6, like those types of downs where you can run or pass or do a play action, things that kind of open up the playbook a little bit more. If Bosa is teeing off on Darnold, it's going to be a long day for the New York Jets. Green Bean, how can the Jets win week 2?
First of all, I think we are winning. Okay, this is how it goes for me. I need 2 days to kind of, cry a little bit, get mad at my kids, stuff like that. And then once I get past it, I start to look at things. And I'm a homer, man. I know I can sound negative at times, but the truth is I'm a homer fan. An analytical homer, let's call me. So the way that we're going to beat the Niners, you started to say it. It is what it is. I don't root for injury or anything like that, but it just so happens that they're decimated. Now, if Kittle doesn't play, their weapons are limited, man. They have very low-powered offense. Their running game, it just so happens that that's the strength of the Jets D. Now, and Mario, alluded to it before. We were able to stop the Buffalo running game minus Josh Allen. Garoppolo is not Josh Allen in that respect. And in truth, I don't even love Garoppolo's game anyway. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but he's not the most impressive quarterback in the league to me. Um, so if we can do that, if we can stop their running game, I don't think that we're going to have that difficult of a time stopping the rest of their offense. If we're able to do that, if they become one dimensional, I think we're going to do a pretty good job. And as far as our offense, all we have to do is watch our offensive line have a game underneath them and just step on what they've built. And Darnold has time. I think that all he has to do is hit the damn receivers, and we're going to blow them out.
Mario,
28.
how you feel about the Jets' chances against the 49ers this week?
Well, Green Bean brought up some excellent points. You are facing another top tier elite defense that has, I think, what 7 first round picks on it. It's insane. But he alluded to the fact if you can keep it close. I mean, you're talking about an offensive minded coach in Kyle Shanahan, who a lot of the things they were attacking were in the middle of the field. So you look at Raheem Mostert was your leading receiver with 4 receptions. Kittle had 4. Your fullback had 1. Kendrick Bourne, I think, is the leading wideout with 2 catches. And it just came up in the chat that 49ers just got Mohamed Sanu on a 1-year deal. So I don't know how much of an impact he would have, but that all being, centered in that, I think the 49ers have a different style of defense than the Buffalo Bills do as far as disguising different things. They just want to come up to the line and punch you in the face. But the one thing that helped the Arizona Cardinals win the game in that was that Kyler Murray had 91 yards rushing. So it seems like if that is the blueprint of Darnold having to take off a few times, he's not Kyler Murray. I mean, we all know he's not Kyler Murray. So maybe some of those pass plays that were called, he just ran and took off and was able to make some positive yardage for it. So I think offensively, the Jets are going to have a little bit of trouble. I think Gase could scheme around that as far as the defense goes. But on the other side of the ball, I think it's going to be very competitive. I think the Jets defense can, with Quinnen Williams, they could stuff the run. They could just try to make Garoppolo. If you try to make Garoppolo beat you on the outside, that's the biggest thing, because what they do is in San Francisco, they try to keep everything compacted in the middle. You talk about Kittle, you talk about the fullbacks, you talk about Mozart. They're always doing those dink and dunk in the middle type stuff. The Bills were going 5 wide and then 10 personnel, 1 running back and no tight ends a lot, and they were spreading everyone around. So when you look at that dynamic as far as trying to play defense against the Bills versus playing defense against the 49ers, I think it's going to be completely different.
Yeah, for me, the Jets are going to have a tough time with this, but if you can contain the offense, if Sam can start to get some things going, I think you can keep it closer. I think this game is going to be a more competitive game than what the Jets-Bills game was. I think the Bills are just a bad matchup for the Jets. I think the very opposite of this particular situation this week. Now, that being said, I did not pick the Jets. I think until they prove they can actually put out some semblance of an offense, I'm going to have a hard time taking them probably until next week. The Colts seem like they might have their own issues. But the 49ers, their interior defensive line, if our offensive line can hold up, I'm excited. I want to see Becton more. I like watching him throw guys around. It was fun watching it a little bit. He got beat by Hughes the one time, but by and large, I think it's all going to hinge on Gase and Darnold. I think that's what this game is going to come down to. I think the other pieces almost don't matter as much. I think it's going to be these 2 guys you're going to win and lose on the back and arm of Sam Darnold.
I think there's a very unique thing at play here in this week. Like you talk about Bell being out, you don't have Mims. You're talking about who really expects, number one, the Jets to win this game. That's one. 2 is this. The air of unpredictability, I think, is going to be amazing. When you have your back against the wall and all the cards are on the table and whatnot, you could be a very dangerous team if you have nothing to lose. And if the Jets are coming out of there and Gase is like, listen, he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on in the media. He knows what's going on in the team. He's like, listen, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out swinging. If that's his mentality. And he's just going to put Darnold in the absolute best spot to win the game. They may, when they started going no huddle, they started to pick up a lot of things there. I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to go start no huddle, the whole game start no huddle, and try to see if they can get the 49ers gassed early.
We've said that in the past, Mario. We've look how effective we are playing the no huddle, and we all think it, and Gase won't do it. I don't know. He's very traditional in that way. And it's sad. You're right. I completely agree. And we don't want to talk about the garbage time, but 2-minute drills are one thing. But there is a consistent progress that's made when we go to the hurry up, and Gase will not. He just will not instill it or install it. I mean, he just doesn't do it. And that again backs up to what I think the ultimate problem is Adam Gase. I really do believe that he's not the guy.
When I look at this team and I look at Sam Darnold in general, I see the potential of him running. Like there was that opportunity when he threw the ball in the center of the field and we got intercepted. He had a bunch of grass in front of him. Just run the ball. Take what the defense gives you. I want to see more planned rollouts. I want to see more play action. I want to see RPOs. I want to see Sam get out on the edge. Like even if you do a bootleg out and you're eliminating half the field and you have all the routes sort of dragging over across the field, I think those are the opportunities that Sam could take advantage of and could help simplify the offense for him, simplifies the where he needs to look on the field. Like that to me is really the spot I want to see out of Sam. I think having that dual threat, not that he's a runner, but just that he has the ability to run and take off. You saw how mobile he is in the pocket. He's able to run around. Just take that 5 yards down the field. That'll help you in those downs and distances.
Yeah, those little half rolls can be beneficial to him, but one of the things that opens up those half rolls and those play action plays where he decided to bootleg and whatnot is the running game, and that definitely needs to get off of the ground first. And to Green Bean's point, I think one of the Gase isn't people want to be down on Gase, and I understand that, but people need to realize that every offensive coordinator that's in the NFL knows football. They know it inside and out, and he may have. Now, don't kill me or crucify me for this. He may have his hand on the pulse of the offense, and why he's not running more 2-minute is because of the cohesiveness of the offense isn't there yet. I mean, to run a no huddle and have all the working parts, 11 parts, be on the same page. We haven't seen that in week one out of the Jets. We haven't seen that cohesive unit working together as one. So you can't really go no huddle in that instance. But in the times that he has tried to go no huddle, to try to pick it up. Who knows? Maybe Buffalo took their foot off the gas. Like you said, garbage time. Who knows what's going on? But he may be like, listen, we don't have to do more. We have to do less and do it crisper. That's what we need to do for this offense. We need to hold up for at least 3 seconds for Darnold. Guys are open. He can hit guys that are open. We need to move the chains, slow the game down, get the ball out of the opposing team's hands. You got to realize the Bills ran 87 offensive plays to the Jets 56. That is not a recipe. I mean, when your opponent's running 31 more plays than you, that's pretty insane. But that's the product of Dable being here for 3 years, Allen being here for 3 years, this offense being together for a couple of years. That is what you're going to see, I think, in another year with this Jet offense, even with Gase at the helm. And I know I'm going to get crucified in the chat, but I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that.
Look, I think having the continuity is what definitely helped you guys. I mean, you guys have a stellar team from a talent perspective anyway, but just having, I think it was something like 88% of your roster was returning, like if you include the practice squad. That's an absurd amount. That's got to be the highest in the NFL, I would think. To have a shortened season and to have that continuity and to have the flexibility of the head coach and the offensive coordinators and just how you guys approach the whole game. I'm envious as a Jet fan. I want to see our team do that. RJ MacPot, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, who's the last mediocre quarterback to be extended? Starting to think the plan is to sabotage Sam, to lowball his contract that's already going to be low. So we're basically trying to get him on a second rookie deal just by sabotaging him right now. I think that's the plan that he's laying out. So who do you think the last mediocre quarterback to sign was? Who was the last one? Was it Sanchez?
Brock Osweiler.
Oh, Osweiler. That's a bad one.
It's Tannehill. Come on now.
Tannehill, yeah. He played well last year, but he got signed.
Yeah, I don't know. Do they mean for the Jets or just in general? Mediocre quarterbacks
I think in general.
Signed all over the joint.
We see Cousins in the chat. Corky says Cousins. We got a Tannehill in there from
Cousins with his
Steve.
guaranteed $86 million, which I still don't understand. I really don't.
Hey, I was big on the Cousins bandwagon for the Jets. I was like, hey, you don't know who's going to be available for the New York Jets at number 6. You don't know if we're going to be able to get up high enough to get the quarterback we want. Take Cousins. He's in free agency. We offer him a ton of money. He's just like, I'm good. I'm going to go over here and go to like championship games or whatever the hell they're doing over there now.
It's pretty funny. Mike Donovan says, I'm trying to be objective. He says, I'm bugging because I keep trying to be objective about the Jets. He goes, don't ever be objective about the Jets.
Who's the last mediocre quarterback to get signed? Tom Brady gets tossed in there. Yeah. That makes me smile a little bit. Nick Foles. That's true. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl at least.
What were you going to say, Green Bean? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember. I really don't. I swear I have no recollection of anything.
Yeah, like I'm not one of those guys that, I mean, obviously being a Bills fan, I understand what having a below average football team is. I don't think the Jets are there after one game playing against a team like Ryan said, returned 88% of its roster. You have a completely new rebuilt line. Your best defensive weapons, one got traded, one's opting out. Your best offensive weapon pulled a hamstring at the half. Like it was the perfect storm of crap. And in the third quarter, you still were in the game. So that all being said, I mean, I'll try to look for the positives within that's going on with the New York Jets. You have a young quarterback who's very talented. I think Darnold's one of the putting a Rosen and Baker in front of him. If you put Darnold on the Browns right now, good Lord, what he would do with that team, what he would do with those monsters over there.
Yeah, I think Sam has gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to the rookie, or not rookie anymore, but the young quarterbacks from that draft class.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, like we said, Rosen is a whole different scenario. But as far as what the teams have done to surround the most recent from his draft on batch of quarterbacks coming into the league, I mean, we've done the least. I mean, there's not even a question. Thank God Joe Douglas put a priority on the offensive line, because I do agree. If you have to pick that over receivers or receivers, you go O-line. That's what you do. But again, I think Sam, and somebody said it in the chat, and I'll just echo it. Sam might not be used to having 3 seconds, and so he's waiting to get hit. And that it seemed like there was that nervous energy about him, and that is what ghosts are. That's what we're talking about, is feeling things that aren't necessarily there, and that could be happening too, because as we know, Buffalo's defense is serious, and the guys like Hughes can get to the quarterback. So who knows, man? I don't know if Baker, and people were saying, let's trade Darnold for Baker. Man, look, Baker, he has the weapons. And he's not doing anything. So I wouldn't be so down on Darnold. I'm down on Darnold for this game, but I haven't jumped ship on Darnold as a quarterback, and nor have I jumped ship on this season. But like I said earlier, even though I'm supporting Gase, from what I've seen, I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to be the guy to get us there, whether we give him all another year or not. And I would just love for Joe Douglas to make a true emotionless assessment of this and make a decision if it needs to be made.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to rip the Band-Aid off if you're Joe Douglas. Yeah. I think regardless of if there is any friendship there, or if it's kind of been overstated as we think it might have been. I think if you think Gase is hampering Sam Darnold's development, for me, it's easier to get a new head coach than it is to get a franchise quarterback, and I think Sam is the franchise quarterback. So for me, it's not even a question. I'm moving on from Gase before I'm drafting another quarterback.
Now, do you guys feel that the Jets have reached the point of no return with that?
With Adam Gase?
He's already been coaching Darnold for his time, and I think it was I think a stat came out this weekend, said something about Baker Mayfield. It said he's on his 4th head coach in his first 30 starts or something like that. It was like insane.
Well, it's a weird thing. Yeah, it's a weird thing too, because I'm usually on the side of continuity. Like I supported Mike McCagnon far longer, than I should, quite frankly. Let's say that. But the reason that I did that is because I see benefit and value in continuity. Like, and there's no guarantee the next guy is going to be any good either. So, like, rather than this carousel, it's like last year there was a cry for someone on our coaching staff to be fired, and I'm like, why? Why are you firing guys and making, scapegoats out of people? If you give people time to actually get things in place and get moving forward. But my problem with Gase is that I haven't seen anything from him in his career that would lead me to believe he's the guy to get us out of a hole. I mean, he doesn't exude confidence. He doesn't get offenses to play, and he always has a legitimate excuse. There's always an excuse, and I'm with it. But I just don't see. I see Sam Darnold looking like he's regressing, or at minimum not progressing, and that's where the fear is, because I really do believe that we're ruining him. I think Douglas is doing a decent job with the incremental building, and of a team and a core and a foundation. As much as it sucks to think, hey, throw another offense at this kid, I really struggle with the idea that Adam Gase, like, here's how I look at it. Is Adam Gase the guy to overcome Bill Belichick and win a Super Bowl? And I don't know, man. I don't see it. And if you know that early, why hang around?
Yeah, so, Mario, this is the discussion that a lot of Jet fans are having and a lot of the media are having, because a lot of people believe in Sam Darnold, or at the very least, they feel like we're ruining him. And that to me, if the Jets were to move on from him, like say the Jets get the first pick, they take Trevor Lawrence and they trade Sam Darnold, I will be a Sam Darnold fan wherever he goes, because I truly believe in the guy. And I feel like when you see, who knows, if the Jets get the first pick, maybe Trevor Lawrence goes, I'm going to go back and play football again. He pulls up Peyton Manning and he doesn't want to come to the Jets. Oh, yeah. God.
Well, here's the thing that I always, and we talked about this. We put our tin hats on and we speculate about this all the time. Paul and I talk about this quite a bit on our show. When we have our Jets episodes, we talk about it. Number one, you have to ask yourself, who's really in control? Because if it's a split locker room, like Williams is a very, strong-headed guy. If it's a split locker room where it's Gase versus Williams, number one, if you replace Gase, that's the number one fact. If you replace Gase, you have to have a bigger name guy than Greg Williams, who's more stubborn and headstrong, to take over that locker room completely. That's one. Two, the amount of capital that the Jets gave up, even though if it was a different GM, the amount of capital they gave up to get Sam Darnold is something that owners do not ignore. They don't ignore that stuff. Like, listen, you gave up all this stuff, and now we're going to trade him 4 years into his deal. That is absolutely, even though it was a previous regime, that is insanity for that to happen. So those are the two things that I always thought there was a split in the locker room between Williams and Gase, because one's a lunatic and the other one is Greg Williams.
A lunatic? They're both crazy.
I couldn't pick. I really couldn't pick.
It's like, who are you talking about?
It wasn't like that Darnold was just like a first-round pick on a quarterback that you tried and it didn't work. You gave up significant capital to the Colts to do that. And they went out and they've built a bunch of, they were able to acquire assets and stuff like that you had. So in that respect, I think those are two things that are going to be battling with each other. Okay, you can get rid of Gase, sweet. Who's going to take over Greg Williams? Who are you going to bring in to take over Greg Williams? That's the question in my mind.
Guys, we got 109 likes. I want to see this up over 150. We got 260 people in this chat. I know you guys can do it for us. If you like the content on this channel, drop a like. It helps people that see this later on in the week or whatever know that it's a good stream. People will tune in. We'll get more people in the chat, get more conversation going. Now, you brought up an interesting point. Who would the Jets be bringing in that could be a strong personality or could help lead the offense? Now, for me, we talked about it a little bit earlier on the show. Mario, I want to get your thoughts on it. What do you think about Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens? Joe Douglas has the Baltimore Ravens connection. If things go sideways and all of a sudden Gase is out the door, could the Jets be looking at a guy in Greg Roman who developed an offense around Lamar Jackson, developed an offense around Colin Kaepernick, developed an offense around Alex Smith? Is this the guy that could be coming in and saving the Jets in 2021?
Well, I'm going to say this to you, Ryan. You work at a golf course, correct?
I do. I
Would you
do.
bring in an ex tennis player, like to me to manage? Like to me, Greg Roman and the type of offense that he runs, like in the two names that you mentioned, Kaepernick and Jackson, are on the other side of the spectrum as far as quarterback play goes with Sam Darnold. So you would have to try to actually talk about the type of philosophy that he would want to bring in. What type of quarterback would he want to bring in? Who would he want to have at his disposal for this offense? Because he completely built that offense around Lamar Jackson and his feet. Could he build an offense completely around a guy with his arm? Now, if you compare, and this is the tricky part, you got to go back a ways. You got to go back to San Francisco when he coached for Jim Harbaugh, whose name has been coming up in the chat quite a bit. You talked about a guy, he was an offensive coordinator with Jim Harbaugh, and they had Alex Smith. So if you can compare Alex Smith and his feet to Sam Darnold, then it could possibly work. But other than that, we've seen the type of success he was able to have with a quarterback that runs like 4.4 40, and that's not Sam Darnold.
Sure. No, but hey, here's the other thing. You got a guy that's an offensive-minded guy. He's an offensive lineman. Douglas is former offensive lineman. He's big on the offensive line guys. I could see him bringing in a head coach that shares in that philosophy and has shown to build their offense around quarterbacks. Now, is he specifically looking for running quarterbacks? Because if the Jets get the first overall pick and Trevor Lawrence is sitting on the board, Greg Roman's going to be eyeing the Jets, taking Trevor Lawrence and getting that other first-round pick. And then maybe Sam Darnold's getting shipped out. That's the tinfoil hat theory in me that could potentially see that happening. Greg Roman's the guy I think at this junction right now is who I'd probably pick for the Jets as the most likely candidate, or someone from Baltimore, and it just feels like he's the guy that would be up next.
Oh, he's a popular name. He's popular. I'll tell you, a guy that probably should have got hired this past offseason was the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator in Leslie Frazier. I think he should have got a head coaching gig, and that might happen. And Brian Daboll got denied an interview at Cleveland. I mean, you guys can have Daboll. I mean, I'm good. You guys can take Brian Daboll from us if you want. Someone else was talking about in the chat. I was just kind of looking at it real quick. Talking about Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. You know, he's a guy who was coached and mentored by Andy Reid, who I feel is one of the best play callers in the history of the league, next to Bill Walsh. So if you want to talk about a guy that can call plays and design a West Coast offense for a guy who's from the West Coast, Sam Darnold, that might be an option for you. I'd love to see him in New York.
Yeah, I think the thing with Greg Roman is interesting because yes, he has Lamar Jackson and the history with running quarterbacks. I don't see him as that. I see him as somebody who saw the strength and was able to create something around the strength, which is literally the polar opposite of Adam Gase, who needs specific types of players to be able to run his offense and can't seem to figure out how to use guys who are outside of that spectrum, which is really an issue. So I see Greg Roman as having the ability to switch gears and create something for the strengths of his players, which is really very Ravens-esque, and it's kind of what they do as an organization anyway. So I would think he is a great great candidate. Bieniemy scares me, and two reasons. One is, and you hear this all the time, he's not calling the plays in Kansas City. So when he's the guy actually running things, will he be able to hold it up? That's one. The other one is this. He's had, I think it's somewhere around 10 head coaching interviews, and he hasn't been hired yet. Now, of course, we can look at, he was just the candidate meeting the Rooney Rule and all those kinds of things. But I think while that is probably part of it, I think that if he was really a top tier candidate, if people were impressed by his interview, he would have been hired. And that's a concern for me. So I don't really know Bieniemy. I think that he's going to get a head coaching job this year just because the climate and everything going on, and he is the proverbially the next guy up. So let's see what happens. I just fear if that's the Jets. I don't know if Bieniemy's the guy to come over here. That said, look, I'm still rooting for Adam Gase. I want Adam Gase to win. Don't get me wrong. I'm rooting for him, man. But I think this conversation is probably more indicative of reality than it is tinfoil hats. Sorry to say.
All right, guys, we are at that 10 o'clock mark in the show. So that'll be it for us. I'm going to go around the panel, get some final words, some final thoughts. Mario, thank you for joining us. Any last words for the panel tonight?
Don't jump off the bandwagon yet, as we say in Buffalo quite a bit, guys. It's only week one. There's a lot of football to be played during the season. You never know what could happen, and I'm always honored and thrilled to come in and come on the cockpit, talk to the passengers. I had a great time in the chat, great time talking to you guys, and go Jets.
Green Bean, any last words for the panel tonight?
Yeah, man. Number one, I feel the same way. I just love being here. I love talking Jets with you guys. And Mario, I appreciate you coming on and being the way you are. You're not what we like to call a dick. So there's that.
I've never gone through a table. The first table I'm going through is when Ryan puts me through one because of our bet last year. That's the only one.
I can't wait. As soon as this coronavirus is done, Mario's going through a table. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't followed Green Bean and Mario, their links are in the description down below. Great content creators. But that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much. We'll be back here next week, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. JETS.